Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 21st, 2023 council meeting. Prior to the open session, council met for a brief closed session that was moved by Councilor McCann, seconded by Councilor Borneman. Pursuant to section 39(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 as amended, Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moved to a special meeting closed to the public in order to address a matter pertaining to and educating or training council members, and no member discusses or otherwise deals with any matter in any way that materially advances the business or decision-making of council, hate symbols, and hate speech. The meeting was held and that was carried. As a reminder, this meeting was live streamed, recorded, and available on the internet by visiting the Town of Parry Sound's website at www.parrysound.ca. And we also recognize that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 and the waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. Now, I have some news here. Now, some people may know about this and some people not, but a local businessman, Bill Connor, was inducted into the National Marine Manufacturers Association of Canada Hall of Fame. And the National Marine Manufacturers Association Hall of Fame was established in 1998 in Canada to recognize and honor individuals whose names and deeds are synonymous with the pursuit of quality, innovation, and perfection within the sphere of their expertise, and those who have made or continue to make substantial and lasting contributions toward the advancement of the marine industry. Excellence in this area of product development, competitive activities, environmental protection, legislative support, and arts and entertainment can be considered for an award, and it's the NMMA's most prestigious recognition. In 2023, Bill Connor, president of Connor Industries and Stanley Boats, was inducted into the National Marine Manufacturers Association Hall of Fame. And Mr. Connor's acceptance speech is as follows. I'm humbled and honored to be welcomed into the National Marine Manufacturers Association Hall of Fame and to be inducted with a group of outstanding inductees. My love of boating started early, and a big part of what has brought me to this point is my passion for what I do. Recreational boating with friends and family developed into a love of building high-performance vessels. I want to thank our exceptional team of professionals who make Stanley Boats the industry leaders that we are. Building a prosperous rural business and competing against companies in much larger cities is tough. But at Stanley, the sense of community translates into quality, and local cooperation between government, suppliers, and vendors is essential for future success. So we want to congratulate Bill Connors and his team, and Bill for being inducted into that National Marine Manufacturers Hall of Fame. Yeah. And I mean, he may have started with recreational boats, but he's built some amazing boats that have gone all over the world. So this is pretty cool. In 2020-2021 annual report that the town did, Connor Industries was featured in that as well at that time. So certainly we're very proud of his accomplishments and the work that they do, and keeping people employed and producing great product. Now, next is the agenda. So we have a mover and seconder for the agenda, Councillor Keith and Councillor Bileski. Any additions or prioritizations to the agenda? Johnson?
Worship,
There you go.
I suggested 2 additions with an email today.
Yes.
one, the Economic Development Collaborative, and a direction following one of the items of correspondence on the Seawinds Boundary Road.
Right, okay. All right, good. And is there any prioritization of the agenda? No, okay. So council's good with bringing those two items into the meeting? Okay, all right. And the council agenda for November 21st, 2023 be approved as amended. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Nope. Okay. May I have a mover and seconder for the minutes? Councillor McCann, Councillor Keith. The minutes from the regular council meeting held November 7th, 2023, and the special meeting held November 14th be approved as circulated. Any discussion or comments on those minutes? All in favor? Carried. Now, we're going to go to a public meeting. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a few minutes to hold a public meeting to hear any interested persons with regard to a proposed zoning amendment application under section 34 of the Planning Act. May I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Boleski, Councillor Ashford, that we do now adjourn the regular meeting and declare the public meeting open. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Ms. Johnson, can you explain how the public was notified of zoning amendment application Z 23-05 Legend Spirits Company?
Your Worship, notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 125 meters, within 120 meters and posted on the property. Notice is therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rand, could you explain the purpose of the proposed zoning amendment application?
The subject lands are located at 7 Great North Road, and the application was submitted in order to rezone the subject lands from the existing zones of environmental protection in part and highway commercial in part to special provision 26-138 in part and special provision 26-139 in part. Special provision 26-138 would recognize existing setbacks and lot coverage within the lands zoned highway commercial, permit a distillery, an alcoholic spirits manufacturing facility, along with accessory uses, including a tasting room, guided tours, and retail liquor sales. And all other uses and regulations of the highway commercial zone would be applicable on those subject lands. Special provision 26-139 would permit a 370 square meter outdoor patio connected to the main building. Require that a site plan agreement be entered into with the town of Parry Sound in order to implement the recommendations of the environmental impact statement from Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc. And all other requirements of the environmental protection zone would be applicable to the subject lands. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. In accordance with the Planning Act, council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent. A person or a public body who files an appeal of a decision of council of the corporation of the town of Parry Sound in respect of a proposed consent does not make written submissions to the council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. At this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of the proposed application for consent? And I don't see anyone. Oh, online.
Yes.
Okay.
Morgan Consulting.
Okay, all right, very good. That's good to know. So does anyone wish to speak in favor of this proposed application for consent? Please identify yourself by name and give your address.
Your Honor, would you mind if I go, or do you want to open up to members of the public first?
You can go. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Members of the public, Mayor McGarvey and Council, thank you for the opportunity to present to you. My name is Lauren Arsenault and I'm a planner with Morgan Planning and Development. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after the presentation. I have a PowerPoint prepared, so I'd like to just share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Morgan Planning and Development prepared a planning justification report in support of a zoning bylaw amendment on behalf of the owners of Legend Spirits Distillery Company at 7 Great North Road. Purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment is to enable the establishment of a restaurant and outdoor patio spaces accessory to the existing distillery and alcoholic spirits manufacturing facility on the property. The subject property is located on the Seguin River, just outside of the downtown core. Abutting the property to the south is the Rotary Fitness Trail. Property has an irregular shape. It's almost a pie shape with a driveway entrance off of Great North Road. The subject property has 85 meters of frontage on the Seguin River and a total lot area of 3,000 meters squared. The property is developed with an industrial building, which is used as a distillery for the manufacturing of alcoholic spirits. And it was previously used as a jam manufacturing facility, which I'm sure council is well aware of. This use is permitted by the town and considered legal non-conforming, given the majority of the property is zoned environmental protection. There is minimal parking on the site due to the size of the building and the irregular lot shape, but the owners have a lease agreement with the property to the north to allow for additional parking. The subject property is also in close proximity to a municipal parking lot, which provides for additional parking for patrons. The first floor of the building is comprised of the distillery, bottling and packaging areas, and storage of product. The second floor has office space, washrooms, bar and tasting rooms, as well as retail space where product is sold. The second floor also has a kitchen and sufficient space for the proposed restaurant. Extensive renovations have been done to the exterior and interior of the building. The exterior renovations are aesthetically pleasing with dark wood siding and post and beam style architectural details, which is a great improvement over the previous conditions of the site and much more in line with the changing character of the area. So here are a few photos of inside the building showing the existing uses. On the left, you can see the stills. And on the right is the accessory retail store where the spirits and merchandise are sold. There's also a small bar, as you can see on the left, and on the right, a tasting room. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to enable the establishment of a restaurant and outdoor patio spaces accessory to the existing distillery and alcoholic spirits manufacturing main use. The application seeks to rezone the subject property to recognize the existing uses, including the accessory uses through site-specific exception. The zoning bylaw amendment application proposes to rezone the majority of the subject property to a site-specific highway commercial exception zone, with the site-specific exception will deem the existing built form parking and uses to comply. And the proposed riverside patio will remain within the environmental protection zone. Therefore, a site-specific exception will be required to allow for the patio use, as well as to permit the zoning deficiencies, including reduced front yard waterfront setback and increase in lot coverage. The subject property is zoned environmental protection and highway commercial, as you can see here. The boundaries are a little bit awkward as the C3 zone flanks the lot lines and the interior of the property is zoned EP. This application seeks to amend these boundaries so the entire building is covered within the C3 zone. The subject property is designated highway service commercial in the township's official plan, and the existing uses would be considered legal non-conforming. So here's a look at the proposed new zone boundaries, which shows the interior of the property to be rezoned to the C3 exception. To allow for existing uses in built form, as well as allow for restaurant and patio space use. And here's an excerpt from the site plan showing the proposed restaurant area in dark blue. As I mentioned previously, there's already a kitchen area and washrooms in the building that will be utilized for this restaurant space. You can see the proposed deck and patio space, which is shown in yellow and will be comprised of a riverside deck or patio and a few additional tables just out front beside the main entrance. The proposed riverside patio design has not yet been finalized, and as such, a formal zoning review has not been completed. However, reduced front yard setback and setback from the shoreline or water body of 0 meters is being requested, whereas 10 meters is required through the zoning bylaw. Additionally, an increase to allowable lot coverage will also be needed to be included in the bylaw to accommodate the 190 meter square deck and patio area. An EIS was prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc. in support of the zoning bylaw amendment, which recommended preventative avoidance and mitigation measures. The report supports the proposed revision of the zone boundaries to reduce the EP zoning where applicable, while maintaining the EP zoning along the undeveloped portion of the shoreline. The EIS also reviewed the proposed patio and stated that a setback is not recommended, provided the proposed development is restricted to the existing concrete and gravel pads. It is anticipated that the recommendations of the EIS will be implemented through site plan control or a development agreement. Parking for the existing and proposed uses on the site relies on a number of provisions within the bylaw, which I'll just briefly summarize. The existing manufacturing and accessory uses are supported by section 430I and 430JII of the zoning bylaw, which grants legal non-conforming uses exemption from parking requirements. The existing parking situation for the existing uses is not proposed to change. The proposed restaurant use can be considered a change of use within an existing building, which is exempt from providing additional parking under section 430JII. This provision does specify, however, that if an addition is made to the building or structure which increases the gross floor area or a change in use occurs, then parking spaces for the addition or area changed in use shall be provided. And so parking spaces have been provided for the proposed patio use. This use would be subject to a 50% reduction as this property is within the BIA. Parking for the patio use can be accommodated on the budding property to the north through a leasing agreement, which can be further implemented through a development agreement with the township to ensure the continuation of those leased parking spaces in order to continue with the patio use. So section 430I speaks to this. Section 113 of the PPS states that the vitality and regeneration of settlement areas is critical to the long-term economic prosperity of our communities. And it is the opinion of Morgan Planning and Development that the zoning bylaw amendment application is consistent with the PPS and the growth plan for Northern Ontario, given the site is appropriately serviced, and an EIS confirms the application does not offend any natural heritage policies. The subject lands are designated highway service commercial by land use plan Schedule A of the town's official plan. This designation is suited to service and tourist-oriented commercial uses, relying on vehicular traffic for most of their business. The existing uses are non-conforming, however, restaurants are a permitted use within this designation. The proposed rezoning will more appropriately reflect the existing uses and allow for new uses and the expansion of the business while meeting the spirit and intent of this plan. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is compatible with surrounding community, the existing uses on the adjacent properties, and the protection of the Sagron River based on the following reasons. There is a brewery with a restaurant and riverside patio on a neighboring property. The only exterior structural change proposed is the addition of the outdoor patio, which would be cantilevered over the river. At the exterior of the existing structure has undergone significant renovation and is aesthetically pleasing. Proposed new uses will be serviced by the existing municipal water and sewer services. An EIS prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions concluded that the proposed application is consistent with the applicable policies with regard to natural heritage features. Appropriate parking is available through on-site and off-site parking through that lease agreement, which we discussed. And the proposed restaurant and outdoor patio will contribute to and diversify the local tourism economy. In conclusion, Morgan Planning and Development feel the proposed zoning bylaw amendment represents good land use planning for the following reasons. The proposed development conforms to the goals, objectives, and policies of the PPS, the Growth Plan for Northern Ontario, and the Town of Parry Sound official plan. An EIS was prepared by Riverstone, which supports the enclosed application, subject to recommended avoidance and mitigation measures, which can be implemented through site plan or development agreement. And the proposed restaurant and outdoor patio will allow for the expansion of the existing business and contribute to and diversify the local economy. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Now, is there, I don't know if there is, but we'll find out. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the proposed application for consent? No one else online, Ms. Johnson? Okay, there's no one else in the room. So I will ask though, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed application for consent? Which you would please identify yourself by name and give your address. No, so Mr. Rand, have there been any letters received as a result of this notice?
A letter was received by Chris Pettinger of Trestle Brewing Company Limited. This letter was circulated to council and the applicant. The letter is also available to the public and will be included in future staff reports to council. But I would summarize the letter as follows. I just took some snippets out as a summary for council here. We have significant concerns regarding the regulations pertaining to the development and the intensification of use in our neighborhood without the resources or thoughtful and purposeful planning required to address these matters. The report from Morgan Planning and Development excludes actual local knowledge of how our community works and doesn't work in regard to parking. We question the validity of parking agreements as a tool in this case. The agreement timeline is too short to create the required stability. We would suggest that a longer term agreement be a minimum of 5 years. We would be supportive of the town performing its core responsibility in regard to planning and developing a draft plan for parking that addresses the intensification of use in the area. The reduction of parking required for businesses in the DVA is antiquated and fundamentally not a win or positive for businesses, other than assisting in meeting the minimum mandated requirements to skirt over other antiquated or flawed legislation. If we want more customers, more transactions, and dollars spent in the community, build more parking spaces. We believe that the businesses in downtown Parry Sound have earned the right to have their position on purposeful economic development heard and action on what matters we will make a difference to them in the future. And no other concerns have been received by internal or external agencies circulated on the application. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rand. May I have a mover and seconder to close this meeting? Councillor Keith and Councillor McCann. We now adjourn the public meeting closed. I declare the public meeting closed. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Questions of staff? Councillor Keith?
Yes, just a quick question, and that would be for Public Works. And that would just be, sir, can you advise, are all the trucks, et cetera, sidewalk plows, everything ready? Because we know that we've had serious already weather coming about and already tonight. Thank you, Mr. Cairns.
Through your worship, absolutely. Actually, Public Works has been ready. We're thankful that winter has not arrived entirely yet, but we are prepared.
Anything else? No? Okay, correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Worship, we just have two items of correspondence. The first is from Seguin Township. It's a request for the town to participate and collaborate in the creation of a boundary road serving a municipal development within Seguin Township. So this would be on the south end of town of Parry Sound. It's an 800-meter long road and 100 meters of it is shared along the boundary. So this is a request from Seguin Township. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a direction that's proposed to be considered as an addition to the agenda dealing with this. The second item is from the West Parry Sound Economic Development Collaborative. It's a collaborative of all the area municipalities seeking municipal approval to participate in a strategic planning exercise for the collaborative to determine long-term vision. There are a number of issues that are pointed out with respect to the collaborative. And as I mentioned earlier, there's also a resolution that's been added to the agenda to deal with this item.
Thank you. So they'll come later in the agenda, right?
Yes.
Later. Okay, very good. We have one deputation tonight, and that is from Nadine Hammond and from the West Parry Sound District Museum with regard to 2024 funding. So welcome, Nadine. Do you have
Thank
a
you.
share screen too? Okay.
Thank you for your patience and thank you for your time and consideration tonight. I am here today to give you an annual report on the West Parry Sound District Museum's activities, as well as present our request for 2024 funding. As we'll see later in my presentation, we are asking for an increase in our funding. But before I get into our request, I want to answer why you should invest in the museum. According to the OMA's 2014 profile, museums support economic development, tourism growth, local education, the promotion of community pride, and we provide programming for our community members. This list is not exhaustive, but I believe it is the most relevant to tonight's presentation. The West Parry Sound District Museum over the last year has demonstrated several of these points. We played host to Science North Traveling Exhibition, this is a tongue twister for me, apologize, Indigenous Ingenuity. Our back deck was refurbished thanks to an Ontario Trillium grant, and it officially reopened this summer. The Eroy Smith Gallery and the model train continues to delight visitors with the help of our faithful volunteers. And our YouTube channel has been live for a year, and we are still producing content and looking at expanding such. All of this is possible thanks to our board of volunteer directors and of course, staff. We currently have 3 full-time staff members. New to the team is a communications intern who will help with social media content, marketing, coordinating volunteers, and expanding our membership program. Our collection supervisor is currently on leave, and our acting collection supervisor has stepped up to manage documenting new artifacts, archival donations, conduct research requests, which incidentally have actually doubled this year, as well as reincorporating artifacts from the barn back into our collection. The barn, as you might know, was a dilapidated building in between the museum and the new build at the end of George Street, which has since been removed. And then there's myself. My job is primarily administrative. which includes budget management, revenue generation, human resources, facility management, as well as curatorial duties. So today's request is $45,000. This is a $2,000 increase from over last year. The reason for this is last year when I was presenting or doing my deputations and annual report, I was asked by most, if not all municipalities, how we determine how much to ask for from each municipality. My answer then was it was based on last year's contribution. This year, we examined what each municipality gave or gives over the years and what our basic operation budget is. What we have designed as a basic operational budget is one full-time employee, operational of the building, so that includes utilities and phone services, as well as a little extra that may be set aside to maintain our capital assets. From there, the staff and board plan to use the contributions or that basic budget to leverage it to expand it into more programming, more funding. As such, we examined from there, what we did was we looked at property tax revenue from each of our 7 municipalities, and we receive anywhere from 0% up to 0.7% of municipal property tax from our contributing municipalities. If we ask for 0.4%, we will have that healthy base budget in order to leverage. Thus, this is why we are asking for $45,000 from the town of Parry Sound. This is not quite 4% or 0.4%, but we determined it was better to step up the asks until we reach that 0.4% from every municipality rather than just ask for it all at once. And that does conclude my presentation. Thank you once again for your time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Nadine? Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Not a question, but just a comment and a word of thanks to Nadine. I think you left out a few items on your job description, because let me tell you that she's there 26 hours a week. We're trying to sign her to a 50-year contract, but I don't know that we're going to get. So yes, indeed, thank you to the staff, and we're all working very hard. And I wanted to thank you for your bringing your presentation here tonight. Straight, clean, and simple. And I'm passionate for this kind of thing, so I'll just ask you to speak about the connection that we now have with fiber optic at the museum, and how that has opened up a whole new opportunities for the museum and its services.
Thank you. Yes, so we finally got fiber at the museum. Up until I think July, we were operating on DSL services, which did limit what we could do, because in order to upload to YouTube, what we were doing was I was taking it home on a USB stick and uploading it from my place, because that service was just not functional. Since we've installed it, we have seen a significant decrease in all of our tech issues. They basically become non-existent. And now that we have the fiber, we are looking at renovating what was our kitchen area. The idea is to turn that into a meeting room and to allow it to facilitate hybrid meetings. So fiber just hybrid meetings. The idea is it'll make it a lot more functional, and it will open up a broader revenue stream, so that we're not just relying on donations and fundraising. We'll also be relying on our rental and some of the more self-generated revenues that we can bring in.
Well, thank you once again.
Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Nadine, and I appreciate your presentation tonight and the letter, but I have a couple of questions for clarity, please. In that letter, it explained about 2023 exhibitions. I looked through the exhibitions, and I was just wondering afterwards, as I didn't see any figures as to interest in any of those exhibitions. Did you keep specific numbers for each exhibition to determine which was more fruitful for the future?
Specific exhibitions, no, but I can go back, the way we keep those records, I can go back and generate those reports. I would say the exhibition that had the most interest was the Indigenous Ingenuity. Bert Liverent's exhibition, Georgian Bay Wildflowers, did generate quite a bit of excitement right at the beginning. The only issue right now is what's been going on is because it's been going on for so long. It takes a lot of time and effort to put together an exhibition, which is why we keep extending that particular one so that we're ready to can get a new one ready. In terms of the train, we're getting increased interest in terms of volunteer hours, and the more volunteers that come in to run it, means the more often it's running, which means the more interest we are getting in that train.
Thank you. That's clear, gives me more clarity and certainly shows me what was of more interest. So I appreciate that. In the presentation tonight, it was explained that also the need for a little bit more money, $2,000 is also because you're pursuing tourism. And so therefore, I wonder, we have cruise ships come into Parry Sound in summertime. And at times, I know that there has been concern that passengers weren't able to partake of going and seeing what was in the museum. So what I'm wondering, are there any plans for changes there so that they are maybe open at hours when the ships are coming into port, so that also it's a means of them continuing onward to say through Facebook, et cetera, wonderful exhibits they saw at the Parry Sound Museum?
We did communicate with the ProMest to try and open up the museum when the ships were in port. However, nothing. Our communications with ProMist indicated that they were happy with the hours that we were open. They were not willing to do anything else beyond that. This summer, in order to determine if it was worth it for the museum, the return on investment would be worth it to be open outside of our regularly scheduled hours. We did that by tracking the income and the numbers of people that were coming in from the cruise ships. We made just under $200 from the cruise ships over the course of the summer, which unfortunately the staffing required in order to be open was just not there. And unless something changes, it's unlikely that we will be open outside of our regular hours specifically for the cruise ships.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is that it's not cost effective and juggling the hours just in general isn't the best way to be doing business at this point in time.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Nadine.
Thank you very much.
You have a good evening. Next are reports, and we'll start, I guess, with Councillor Borneman tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. On November 14th, I attended I'll call it a discussion surrounding the concerns of the life lease residents and how we move those forward to resolution at Belvedere. That evening, I attended an educational session with respect to the town's finances, along with other members of council. And I also recently was part of a delegation from Belvedere to attend a Whitestone Council meeting surrounding the acquisition of life lease units. I want to congratulate the staff for the great job they did in decorating Market Square Park. Looks spectacular. Thank you for your time and effort. It was a good opening last Friday night. Seemed to be well attended. I could hear you, but I couldn't see you, Mr. Mayor.
Somebody told me today or last night, they need to put a spotlight on me so they could see me. I don't want to be part of a decoration.
Somebody else said something about a podium, a lift, but we won't go there.
No.
Neither one of us are
No.
gonna do well there. And finally, I want to express my condolences to the family of Wayne Cormier, uh, one-term counselor in the town of Parry Sound. Wayne was, I think, the human energizer bunny. He brought honesty, hard work, and a smile to every table he ever sat at, and a guy with a endless energy and always seemed the glass half full. His fingerprints are all over Parry Sound and his community in Cape Breton, so we send our condolences to Angie and the family. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. Councillor McCann?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff, and public. Wednesday morning, November 8th, the Parry Sound Public Library Board held its monthly meeting. I was not available for that meeting. However, I'm happy to report on the business. Our 2023 annual report was received and accepted. Our 2024 budget has been set. There was a total of 10 policies that the board reviewed, making some minor changes. Treasurer's report for the month of October was accepted, and the success of the coat drive that the library is holding was noted. There's a suggestion that a portion of it may be moved upstairs, relocated to the main level for accessibility. An elevator in that building is something that the board would certainly like to see eventually if we can find the money to do it. Our CEO reported that the weekly library programs, including art, journaling, yoga, French group, and the chess club have all been well attended. And just a reminder that in November, the library is offering a PD Day maritime matinee movie. There is the bi-weekly Children's Chess Club, Kids Tech Club, and the family game night. I too want to congratulate the staff and volunteers who did the decorating at Market Square Park. Wasn't there Friday night, but it was, my wife and I were down there the other night. Beautiful, just great, a lot of imagination gone into that and creativity, and it looks like it's just going to get bigger and better every year. So thank you for that. Also, a special town council meeting, as Councilor Vorneman mentioned, that was last week. I attended that with everyone else. And Mr. Borneman did mention the Cormier family. I have to say that for me personally, and certainly for the community at large, we lost a true friend last week. Suddenly and unexpectedly, he passed away following a massive heart attack in Chetty Camp. He was 78. He died while enjoying one of his favorite recreational activities with his skates on in a game of hockey. Wayne and his wife Angie moved to Chetty Camp in 2019, but spent 15 years here in Parry Sound. He was well respected in the insurance adjuster circles, but that did not really define him. He was a man who served his family, community, and was a real leader and motivator, as you heard Paul mention. He served on the town of Parry Sound Council, as well as countless boards and committees. I certainly had the honor of serving with him on a few of those. He's a founding member of Big Brothers in Parry Sound and a member of the Kinsman Club, also a member of the Knights of Columbus. I'd like to read this from his obituary that read, "To those who mourn his passing, remember he lived to serve," that's in quotes, "and he did so his entire life. And among his many distinguished awards and accolades, he was honored with the Order of Parry Sound in January of 2007. He was a true friend and a mentor. Deepest sympathies go out to Wayne's wife, Angie, and the entire family from Parry Sound to Nova Scotia. And I would add that in Chetty Camp, Wayne never missed a beat. He just got involved there just as much as he did here in Parry Sound. And also condolences to the Obden family on the passing of Peter Obden Sr. He passed away on the 11th of November. He was 86, born in 1937 in Holland, came to Canada in 59. He and his wife married, and they moved to Parry Sound in 75, opened up Obden's Flowers, which is still going strong today downtown. So our sincere condolences to his wife, Mary, and the extended family. And as Mr. Mayor, you mentioned earlier at the beginning of this, just a note of congratulations as well to Bill Connor on being inducted. We continue to see people and their achievements put Parry Sound on the national and international maps. Bill Connor did just that, president of Connor Industries, and Stanley Boats, who was inducted into the National Marine Manufacturers Association Hall of Fame this year. And I think, as you read, Mr. Mayor, in his acceptance speech, he talked about how making a good product, working with the community, being part of the community is a big ingredient for success. So congratulations, Mr. Connor. And that, I believe, is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Belaski.
Thank you, Your Worship. A week ago, I attended the meeting, the special meeting for the town of Parry Sound that most of us did, or I believe all of us did. And yesterday, I attended a Zoom meeting for the Belvedere Financial Committee, and they're in pretty good shape financially. It's a good presentation, and that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ashford.
Thank you. I think, of course, the town's all heard the exciting news coming out of the pool committee meeting week and a half ago. That location has been chosen. So things are moving along great for Parry Sound and our community involvement and wellness of our community. Next, excuse me. Sorry, next, I wanted to congratulate the business community on the Girlfriends Weekend. Things went quite well for quite a few different opportunities for the ladies in town. Of course, I wasn't at them. I was babysitting the children so that my wife could be there, but she came home in pretty good spirits, and everyone I heard from were pretty positive about how things went. And that is everything. Yes, sorry, that is everything for my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff, and the public. As mentioned, I also attended the special council meeting. I also attended the Light Up the Park celebration on Friday night. And as I had heard previously and I'd seen various days, the staff from recreation were out there doing their best to decorate. And I think they did a really fine job at trying to make the celebration of Light Up the Park really fabulous. And I would say from people I have heard, though, I do think we need to come up with something, whether it's a podium or something, so that people can see where, shall we say, the narrator will be. And when the tree is being plugged in, so to speak, so that it's being lit up, some involvement there so that there's even more community involvement. I know some years there had been, whether it's a draw or whatever, so that we had some young people involved, because I think that is really important to that event, also to have young people involved, whether it be at the schools and each grade coming up with student that they think would be appropriate for lighting up the trees and then doing a draw, whatever. But I think that we have an opportunity to have that event even grow more. I also appreciated that same night that the library, because it was a Friday, stayed open an extra hour, and anybody that went in got to hear stories from Santa reading. And also they could take some photos. They had a photo booth, and they even had an area where there was cookies, and one of the staff dressed up definitely as Mrs. Claus. So I think they did a really good job there. I also attended an information session on the police service board, and I too would express my condolences to both the Cormier family and Peter Ogden Senior's family. Thank you.
Thank you. Council staff and public, November 8th, as was mentioned, was the pool committee meeting. Location of the pool was announced and a conceptual drawing released. There has been some great feedback that I've certainly received from the public whether they live in town or out of town, that they're very happy that this is proceeding and that we're moving forward with it. November 9th, I had an MOU meeting with the province for the morning and the afternoon. November 9th at 6:30 PM, I had the Parry Sound District Social Services Board meeting, and you should have received your updates from that meeting. November 14th, I had an AMO task force meeting all morning and other community stakeholder meetings in the afternoon. I want to thank Councillor Ashford for chairing the special council meeting on November the 14th. November 17th at 6 PM was Market Square Park, Light Up the Park, as already been mentioned. It was also the Salvation Army Kettle Kickoff event with a great crowd of people in attendance. The library had an event with Santa. Domino's was at the event, and half of their proceeds went to the Salvation Army for their gift and food drive. And of course, we lit up the park, and I certainly want to thank April and Jamie and our town parks and recreation staff for all the work they did putting everything together in the park. I've received a great number of comments on how good the park looks, and that it must have taken a lot of work to put that together. And I have to commend staff for doing that and thank everyone that came out. So some reminders: November 25th is the Santa Claus Parade. November 29th is the CP Holiday Train. The train is to arrive in Parry Sound at 4:15 PM and the show starts at 4:30 PM. It could be train time, I'm not sure, but we'll find out. And I would also like to extend my condolences to the Cormier family on the passing of Wayne. As was mentioned, Wayne served on Parry Sound Council back in the 80s, and I served with Wayne on the Economic Development Commission and the Community Futures Committee, which brought the CBDC to Parry Sound. So those were some of the committees of the day at the time, and it was an honor to serve with him on those committees because, yes, he was somebody that wanted to see things happen. And so Wayne was a community builder, businessman, and community supporter. He was also, he loved his family, hockey, and for riding that motorcycle. So he is really, truly going to be missed in both communities. I'd also like to extend my condolences to the Obdam family with the passing of Peter Obdam Sr., another local businessman for many years and someone who supported the community as well. And the business is still family owned and operated, which is good to see. And that's my report. So on with the agenda. Moved by Councillor McCann and seconded by Councillor Borneman that bylaw number 2023-7379 being a bylaw to authorize the ratification of execution of an indemnification agreement with the West Parry Sound Recreation and Culture Center Board for site access be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman and seconded by Councillor McCann that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. This is important. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Boleski. The Council of the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound provide the Rotary Club of Parry Sound and Downtown Parry Sound Business Association a letter of support to accompany a grant application attached as Schedule A. Any discussion? Councillor Borneman?
More comment than discussion. I think this is I mentioned this in my report
A hockey day.
a couple of weeks ago. I think this is the first salvo from this group. And I hope not only the town, but the other municipalities in the area will jump on board and help them with their process here, the fundraising efforts towards the pool complex. So we all end up winning with any luck. So do what we can to help these folks along.
That's right. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Blaski, second by Councillor Ashford. Council hereby approves consent application B 23-04 at 24 Bay Street in order to facilitate a lot addition in favor of the adjacent parcel to the north of the subject lands, subject to the conditions outlined in Schedule A. Any discussion? Councillor Keith?
Yes, please, Mr. Rand, can you please explain what is being proposed here? Thanks.
Absolutely, through you, your worship. I do have a brief presentation, given the nature of the application. It's fairly straightforward, but I would note the subject's lands are located at 24 Bay Street. The consent was submitted in order to grant additional lands to the benefiting parcel to the north at 5 Gibson Street for the purpose of access. The drawing is included in staff's report. The severed lands are approximately 3.8 square meters in area and do not contain any road frontage. No internal or public comments were received for this application. Just to run through some technical stuff quickly. The subject property is located within a settlement area, and staff are of the opinion that the application would conform with the intent and policies of the town's official plan, given that no meaningful change into development potential would result from this approval of this application. The severed and retained lands are zoned residential second density, subject to special revision 2678, and the benefiting lands are zoned residential second density. While the split zone is not ideal, given the size of the proposed use, size and proposed use rather of the severed lands, staff are of the opinion that a zoning amendment would not be required in order to facilitate the severance. And as no additional lots or change of ownership or no additional lots are being created, and it's really just a change of ownership of that severed lands, the application would be deemed to comply with the requirements of the zoning bylaw. Staff are recommending approval of this subject application, subject to the conditions, which I'll summarize as the proper registrable description and drawings being submitted to staff for review, and that the severed parcel merge on title with the benefiting parcel, and that section 50 subsection 3 of the Planning Act be applicable to any subsequent conveyances of the parcel of the land subject to the consent. So that concludes my presentation. Hopefully that wasn't too technical and I was able to answer some questions there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Rand? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Ashford, second by Councillor Boleski, that the staff report parking on boulevards be received and that the current parking bylaw prohibiting parking on boulevards remain in effect. Councillor McCann.
Perhaps for the public's benefit, we could bring this to light here. Mr. Thompson, or?
Through your worship.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were still there.
Yep, I'm still here. So the report on parking on boulevards does detail that the current parking bylaw does not allow parking on boulevards. This has been a regulation that's been captured within the past few parking bylaws, so for many years, and is a standard regulation in most parking bylaws. So that refers to the section between the travel portion of the road and the sidewalk, or where there isn't a sidewalk, the property line. So it is a portion of the town's road allowance. And parking is not permitted there for many reasons, but some of the main reasons highlighted within the report would be it is an area for snow storage. It does have infrastructure in it. Obviously, our snow storage space is very important, particularly at this time of year. It is typically a naturalized area with grass and trees, and is really not intended for parking, but is to provide that buffer between the road and the properties. And so for those reasons, parking is not permitted in these areas, and staff would recommend that it remain in that way.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Borneman. Allison, is parking allowed on boulevards where we have cobblestone?
So parking is permitted along the apron of a driveway. So the bottom portion of anyone's driveway, that would be somewhere that somebody is permitted to park. The rest of the boulevard areas, even if they do have a hard surface, such as cobblestone or paving, it really is still meant for snow storage, because obviously the snow coming off the roads and our sidewalks are meant for those areas. So even though there may not be grass in certain boulevard spaces, the town does use those spaces for other purposes.
So maybe the question might be, if someone has a property with a driveway entrance that on the side is paved, let's say, and they need to shuffle vehicles around to get maybe one car out from a parking spot, are they able to park on the boulevard for 15, 20 minutes or something like that to be able to move the vehicle around?
So typically we wouldn't capture somebody using it in that manner for a few moments. The bylaw states that there's no parking on boulevards, the portion of the boulevard that's not intended for the travel of vehicles. So meaning that the bottom portion of your driveway would be somewhere you can park. If someone were to be shuffling vehicles and in attendance, doing it within a very short time frame, that's not likely something that we would capture. And when there's somebody in attendance with a vehicle, our first option is always to ask them to move, instead of issuing an offense. So I don't believe that that would really be a main issue, or is the main issue that we receive complaints about. It's much more typically vehicles parking for periods of time, blocking sight lines for other individuals leaving driveways, or trying to get around corners, people damaging the town portion of the property by parking on it repeatedly. Those are the types of complaints that we tend to receive.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All in favor of this then? That's carried with none opposed. Coming along. Moved by Councillor Bileski and seconded by Councillor Ashford. Whereas the Council for the Township of McKellar entered into the West Parry Sound Recreation and Cultural Center Joint Municipal Service Board Agreement attached to Schedule A, together with 5 other municipalities on September 10th, 2021. And whereas the Council of the Town of Parry Sound recognizes the benefits that West Parry Sound Recreation and Cultural Center will bring to the West Parry Sound area, and whereas the Council for the Town of Parry Sound recognizes the importance of collaborating with all the area municipalities, and whereas Council for the Town of Parry Sound has been and remains fully committed to this project, and whereas the Town of Parry Sound is a significant contributor to this initiative, and whereas participating municipalities to the agreement are subsidizing the Township of McKellar's discounted funding commitment. And whereas the Council of the Township of McKellar has passed a resolution seeking release from the West Prairie Sound Recreation and Culture Center Board and its agreement in accordance with section number 23 of the agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound does not support McKellar's withdrawal from the West Prairie Sound Recreation and Culture Center Board and the agreement, and further be resolved this resolution be sent to all West Prairie Sound municipalities. Councilor McCann?
So I was just wondering, how binding something like this is. Or is that a question for the legal beagles?
Mr. Harris, I think will answer that one.
Through the chair to Councilor McCann, the agreement that was entered into by the 6 participating municipalities has provision for changes to the agreement. The changing, in this case, letting a member out of the agreement requires a unanimous vote of all the participating municipalities. Where a municipality wishes to withdraw from the board or this agreement, or where the funding formula is to be changed, in which case all municipalities to this agreement must give their consent. So it's certainly legitimate for McKellar to make the request, but all the other 5 municipalities are participating in the agreement have to agree. And I believe that the archipelago, for instance, has made a decision that they didn't want, or they don't believe the McKellar should be out of the agreement.
Thank you.
And as mentioned in the body of this resolution, they were given a discounted rate on that. And just as so that people understand the assessment, okay, like property assessment for the town of Parry Sound and the township of McKellar, there's only $60 million difference. Like we have $60 million more of assessment than the township of McKellar. They can well afford to pay their share. We run a full service community. McKellar doesn't. So that tax base can well support what their share is. So, yeah. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just add one other thing. The reason for that provision, when you're building community centers or recreation centers or any asset that's going to last for the number of years that this pool is, we wanted to make sure that we had the full commitment for the duration, for the life of that asset. You can't build a fire hall and then decide you don't want to pay for it or you don't want it. Once those commitments are made, and we've got 23 million, I think it is, from the federal provincial governments to fund this. So it's the right time to do it. And the commitment is there because this is the lifespan of this asset is very long and everybody needs to be in for the long haul. That's why the agreement was written the way it is.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? No? All in favor? That's carried, none opposed. Moved by Councillor. It is it's Ashworth's, right? Yeah. It's just sometimes there's a break in the middle and sometimes there's not. And oh.
We just like to keep you guessing.
That's right. Every once in a while it does. Anyway, moved by Councillor Ashford, seconded by Councillor Bileski, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound hereby supports attached motion 2023-1005 passed on October 10th, 2023 by the Near North District School Board, which strongly implores the Ministry of Education not to exercise their authority granted by Bill 98 for the closure of rural elementary schools, and that a study be undertaken to determine which of the 2 rural elementary schools, being either McDougall Public School or Nobel Public School is the most appropriate to stay open in the West Parry Sound District to serve the area's growing population and alleviate the need to add to the current JK Grade 12 Mega School construction project, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Ontario Public School Boards Association, the Honorable Stephen Lecce, Minister of Education, MPP Graydon Smith, and the West Parry Sound District Municipality. Any questions or comments? All in favor then? And that's carried. Any opposed? Just abstained? It's carried. Right. Yep, okay. So item 953, moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann. The Council of the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound hereby supports attached resolution 23-171 of the Township of the Archipelago, which calls for the following. Minister of Transport enact regulations mandating CP Rail cease the practice of piling up railway ties in a manner that poses a fire risk to Canadian municipalities and their residents. 2, that CP Rail remove all stacked railway ties along their lines. And 3, that Transport Canada work collaboratively with CP Rail to establish alternative, secure, and environmentally responsible methods for the disposal and storage of railway ties. I'd like to make an amendment to this, so then it would read that the Minister of Transport enact regulations mandating CP Rail cease the practice of piling up railway ties and leaving brush in a manner that poses a fire risk to Canadian municipalities and their residents. The second line, that CP Rail remove all stacked railway ties and brush along the railway lines. And that the last part in the last bit would be, and the storage of railway ties and brush. First of all, can I get a mover and seconder for the amendments? Councillor McCann, Councillor Ashford. Okay, so discuss the amendment, the brush part of it, because if the railway ties catch on fire, the brush that they've been piling up or whatever also catches on fire. And as the fire chief knows, things can escalate rather quickly if there's piles of stuff around. Anyway, Councillor McCann.
Well, I would add that sometimes there are sparks that come from the trains and traveling with steel on steel. Brush works as good kindling too.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. Any more comments on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment? That's carried. Okay. Now, any questions or comments on the resolution as amended? Oh, okay, Councillor McCann.
I'm just wondering, does the Ministry of Transportation have the legal muscle to do this if they just so decide to decree such a?
I guess we'll find out.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it'd be Transport Canada, so they hopefully have the muscle to be able to say something to them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything further? Councillor Bileski.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess the brush I understand completely. The railroad ties aren't necessarily, I don't believe, old railroad ties that they've taken out and are just storing them on the side. I think that they're kind of placing them alongside the right of way to establish a spot to get them when they need them faster. I don't know the answer to it. I agree with the resolution, but if they've got to take all the ties off those lines, they may have to, when they run into problems, go a long way to get some new ties to put under the tracks. And they definitely would need a spot to put them. It's going to cost them a lot, to spend a lot more time. See, I don't know the answer, but that's kind of my concern, is for the new ties. to be, they place them there so they can get at them faster where they need them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
that's
as,
just a comment, I guess.
yeah, no, just as an answer to that, the creosote oil soaked ties can catch and the heat and the sun. And even older ties, if they're left taken out and piled, twice I have witnessed old like ties. Once was the old railway ties in the bridge between Trestle and the curling club on the wall, the person bridge there, that the ties were actually smoking. And the other one was Cascade Street Railway crossing. I was going back to work one day and I was coming up over the hill and there was smoke coming up from the ties. But whoa, so I stopped and got out and sure enough, they were sizzling away there or whatever. So I think I called the fire department and they came and threw a bucket of water on it or something, but it can happen. And if you've got a pile of those things and one happens to all of a sudden start to smoke and catch on fire, you got a problem. And especially if you started piling up brush around. So it's a serious, and then if those railway ties catch, then the fumes from the burning creosote are not good for health either. So, yeah. Councillor McCann.
So I didn't know that, Councillor Valesky. That was something, you learn something new every day. I would wonder if with the amount of land, because my understanding is that the rail companies own all the land that their tracks sit on, and there must be a certain width, I suppose, on either side of the track that they have. So maybe the solution would be, and I know that's out of the realm of this particular resolution, would be to build some storage sheds along the way so that every so often you have these little mini warehouses with the ties that are somewhat handy rather than having to go to another city for them or whatever.
I'll make Transport Canada where and they can duke it out with them.
Well, you tell them that.
Councillor Borneman.
So yeah, they do have different spots. Like if you go up to the CP station, there's there
Storage
used
area.
to be a yard there. There's a certain amount of storage. The new ties that you see spread around along the track, people actually steal those things and want them. They're quite valuable for home landscaping projects and such. The ones that you see along the track are about to be put in and in short order before they disappear. The ones that should be of most concern to us are the ones that are kind of scissor cut in half and
Taken out.
they're worthless. They're spent,
Yeah.
but they're still soaked in creosote.
Yeah.
Those are the ones. And I have seen in a couple places in the area, your worship, and it's quite common further north where they're starting to install concrete ties
Yes,
because
right.
they're heavier and
Yeah.
reduce the noise and so on.
Yeah.
So
that's correct. Yeah.
they're working in a better direction.
Yeah, that's right.
On that one.
Yeah, yeah. Anything further? All in favor? Were we all in favor? Okay, all right, good. Thank you. It's carried, none opposed. That's, yeah, okay. Next is 954. It's one of the additions. I need a mover and seconder for the direction. Councillor Keith and Councillor Valesky. That staff be directed to bring back a report to council commenting on the Township of Seguin's request in their letter November 9th, 2023 to create a joint boundary road. So I have a couple of concerns that I think, first of all, we don't know what the proposed development project is. We have nothing that says what they're doing. Second is has there been any an EA done on the road. Like they've carved out quite a swath or whatever, and we, you know, there's no idea whether there's been an EA done on whatever. A traffic impact study, this is going to affect, you know, the harbor area of town. And we have no idea what the traffic is going to be like. We don't know what the development is, so we don't know what kind of impact we're going to have on that area because of traffic flows, right? Now, the other part of it is they mentioned in their letter that they're going to be building this road on, they want permission to use like town property to be able to do it. Are they then assuming liability after this is constructed, sort of thing, if we give them the approval? So I think those are 4 things that come top of mind to me to say we need some answers on some of this before we can say yay or nay to it. And I'd like to hear from council as to if they have any comments or concerns. Councillor McCann, then Councillor Boleski.
I wonder if council would be willing to just have this deferred then this evening.
This is direction to get answers.
Okay, all right, I see what you're going.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Boleski.
Thank you, your worship. I may be a little bit confused on this. Is this not an existing road? Has it not been an existing road before?
No.
Never?
They're using something that was a colonization road, but that's a long time ago. It's all grown over. You know, possibly Mr. Thompson might have more information on how long ago that was used and whether it's in the right place or not. I mean, I don't know. You know. Yeah, Chief Thompson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The section of the road that appears to be what is wanting to be developed is a colonization road. It's called the Old Parry Sound Road. And it was an original colonization road with the rest of the Muskoka, Parry Sound, Simcoe County colonization roads way back when. I have definitely have not been around long enough to know that road has ever been utilized. I'm sure some of you sitting around the table have much more experience with it than I do.
I'm not that old either, Paul.
That being said, there are significant rules surrounding colonization roads and their redevelopment and their utilization. The trick here is that the vast majority of this colonization road is actually in the township of Seguin. There's a very small portion of the colonization road that bumps onto the boundary road concession that is in between town and Seguin. And it's that portion of it that Seguin is requesting participation with and recognition of. So when you're on boundary roads, there needs to be that joint approach to the development. So it's really only a very small portion of what they're wanting to do that falls within that joint area of authority.
Thank you. That further on, according to the drawing there, they are putting, or they want to put the biggest majority of this road on their own area.
Yeah.
There's a portion of it, 300 meters or 800 meters, something like that, I forget now, that is on jointly owned land between Parry Sound and Seguin that they want to build on. And I'm just going back to the traffic, I guess the traffic study, but I'm thinking that the road wasn't that old. I was thinking that it had been a road that had been used 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, so the horse and buggy, well, then, yeah, then traffic wouldn't be bad then.
Ox cart.
Yeah, yeah. That's all my comments are, is I'm just trying to get a little more information on it to find out exactly. It appears to me as if they're trying to put the biggest portion of this road on their own property.
Yeah.
And it does touch, onto joint property. I'm just wondering if they may end up moving it a few feet over to get it off the jointly part property, then they can kind of do what they want without Parry Sound. I'm just thinking we should try and work with our our neighbor and municipalities as much as we can. And that that we could maybe support it on with the conditions that we give some of your concerns, the traffic studies and stuff like that. Yeah. That's my comment. I just like to see that there's some willingness to work with municipalities to touch on our boundaries.
Yeah.
Without just saying, no, we want this, we want that, you know.
Yeah, just for
And that's it.
just for clarification, I don't think we're saying no. I think what we're saying is, you know, you've started to construct a road, which was already on Seguin property, but it enters and exits pretty much in town. And especially the exit behind the hospital, because that's going to affect our area on Parry Sound Road and up and through Great North Road, Emily Street. We don't know the impact of what it's going to be because we don't know what they're doing. Okay, so it's fine to keep. Try to choose my words carefully here. It's fine to do the work, but then come back in and ask, but not really give you any information as to what's going on. And that concerns me because they should be more forthcoming with information. I think they should be if they want to partner on this. And I think asking these questions, I think are fair enough for our municipality and our ratepayers to make sure that they're protected. And then it can come back once we've got the information, and then we can decide what, you know, if we're going to do it. But if we're left in the dark, I think we need a little bit of a flashlight here. Councillor McCann.
So two comments, maybe one is a question. So with Councillor Boleski made a comment that was on my mind, maybe to keep things simple, can they move that portion over to their own property and develop? I'm not sure how rough the terrain would be, and if that's possible, the path of least resistance may not be the most practical for us in the long run. So that was one comment. It seems to me that it wasn't that long ago that we wanted to, and I think we did have some study done on opening the road from Osler Park Drive down to Parry Sound Road or Drive, or I mixed up all the time, but because we had looked at the idea of having another access into town, especially for emergency purposes. And we were telling the folks in Seguin at that time that this could benefit them as well as us. So so I just wondered, is there any information on what we gathered that would work with them or for them or with us, or as you say, we want to work together. But it gets complicated, I suppose, when the border goes down the middle of a road and who plows one side and the other. Yes.
We had done a study a number of years ago, whatever, and had some sort of preliminary engineering sort of concepts done or whatever, which, you know,
I think
cost a fair bit of money.
Yeah,
do.
I think it was just like in my first term, so I
Yeah.
think it was after 2014.
And there were three alternative routes that the engineers chose or whatever to go through the property. Seguin, I believe, was given a copy of all that so that they could have it. You know, we paid for it, but they got a copy of it. Mr. Harris, I don't know if there's anything you've got to add to that, or
Yeah, through the chair, we recently received this request from Seguin, brought it to the attention of council this evening. These comments will be helpful. Staff are going to prepare a report and bring this information plus other thoughts, considerations. There might be some opportunities and advantages of this as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to bring a report back, a fulsome report to this council, and then get get direction from there to meet, negotiate, you know, whatever the case may be with Sequin.
Thank you.
There could be some plus upsides for us as well on this. Counselor Borneman.
So I agree with Counselor Boleski as well, that, you know, I'm actually, when I seen this, I'm actually hopeful that it jumpstarts some conversation about servicing that entire area. You know, I know what council's position was a couple of years ago. That was before the minister approved the MZO. Now he's investigating the MZO, so we don't know what the outcome of that will be. I understand that, but to my recollection, when you said a little bit of money, it was $15 million 10 years ago to provide a full service road through there. And the part, I'm not clear exactly where the railway line is, whether it's on the boundary road or in Seguin or whatever, but that crossing is, you know, if the volume of traffic goes up significantly, that crossing is a pretty significant concern in my view of the world.
That's a good point.
That will have to be addressed.
Okay.
And so that should be part of whatever conversation that goes on.
Yep. That's true. Counselor Ashford and then.
Okay,
Councillor
all right.
McKinnon.
I don't know if we need to fully amend the direction, but I did want to propose perhaps a friendly amendment to it. That we've asked staff to reply quickly to them, so they're not waiting to find out that we are going to follow up. Just let them know what we're doing right away. And then also maybe provide them an anticipated date that we would be getting back to them, or that we would be looking at council. And that might just be something that the clerk's office does already, just give everybody a heads up when things happen. But I just thought it would be a good way to show we're giving it full respect and duty, and that we really want to make sure that we are taking it seriously and looking at how we can work with this going forward.
Well, I think they're going to be following up with Seguin staff anyway. They've got to get some of the answers that they need, and then once they do get those, then they'll bring them back to us so we can actually see what the answers are, so we know what's going on. Yeah. Mr. Harris?
Through the chair, our thought was to bring a report listing all the issues, make sure we captured everything, maybe at the next meeting. And then from that, meet with Seguin. And capture what was discussed today, plus staff has some other, have already been given this some thought and have some other thoughts. So we'd probably, you know, I don't want to put Mr. Harand on the spot, but I don't think we need to analyze all the issues. I think we need to articulate to make sure it's the full list. And then we can meet and start working through the issues.
Yeah. But, yeah. Councillor McCann, then Councillor Keith.
So I was just, Councillor Borneman sort of jogged my memory here when he mentioned the train. So would this road go over the? Does now. Okay, that's good. So I would remind folks that the trains have a habit of stopping at South Parry and sometimes block Forest Street. So you can almost be sure that that's going to be a congested area at some point if it builds up, and perhaps maybe they could go over it or underneath it or something. But I think it's worth, it's all there in that.
Well, one thing we have to remember is that road from I'm going to say the railway tracks, then further in towards Parry Sound. It's an old corduroy road. And it hasn't or wasn't built for super heavy duty traffic. And you know, that's something that, I mean, Mr. Kearns is going to have to take a look at is because we don't know what's going to be going over that road. And you know, basically it's built on a swamp. And if anybody knows what a corduroy road is, then they piled wood on top of it and they crisscrossed it until they built it up so high. It's built on a swamp. And it might go like this. But anyway, Councillor Keith and then Councillor Borneman.
Yes, I was just going to say that I would hope that when staff are looking at the direction here and investigating, that they will also be keeping in mind our strategic plan, because I think it's important for us to work with our neighbors, but I think we have to keep our strategic plan, our vision in focus, and also budget. You know, we're going to spend money too. And I think this is really important because we know another budget's coming up. We know there are certain priorities that we have, and we know we have to work within our budget. So we have to say, realistically, can we do it? Or is this on the wish list? So I think there is a bigger picture here than just the road itself. So I just hope we look at the big picture so that we don't have surprises down the road, because I don't think the taxpayers expect council to make a decision and then say afterwards, oops, I didn't think of that. So I really hope there's a lot of thought put into it. And if that means it isn't done by the next meeting, I know personally I can live with that too. Thank you.
Councillor Borneman?
I'm not gonna argue with Councillor Keith that it needs to be done right, but you know, when the studies, when the investigation was done 10 years ago, it was done by us because we seen an advantage for us in opening up certain properties that are within the town. And the conversation kind of ended when we didn't have a partner who was willing to pull their weight and their half of the load. It seems like the dynamics have changed a little bit here now, and that maybe the shoe is on the other foot, and you know, there is a partner out there that's willing to contribute. And as I say, I think I don't think there's anything bad that comes out of talking with your neighbor, and if it leads to more, all the better.
Yep.
I agree. You know, at the time, Mr. Mayor, you'll recall, we were worried about congestion on Bow Street. Well, that hasn't gone away. We were looking at alternative routes for EMS folks and emergency services in general. None of those things have gone away. You know, as the community continues to grow, those problems just exacerbate themselves. So if there's a solution here, that makes sense, let's get on with it.
Yep, exactly. Councillor Ashford and then Councillor Boleski.
Just something that Councilor Brunneman said that caught my attention too was the accessing the back properties from the town of Parry Sound. I think it did cross my mind that if the road is mostly in Seguin, it doesn't actually open it up for us. So we'd have to have some kind of assurance that we would be able to cross that Seguin portion in order to open up those roads, especially with the hospital and the Lakeland expansion possibly in the future and things. It would give a little bit more access to the hospital property, but that would be over a significant portion of road allowance that's owned by Seguin.
Councillor Boleski?
Thank you, your worship. I guess my comments were, we were looking at some way of reducing the traffic on Bull Street. I understand your concern. I think you're thinking of all the salt trucks that could be coming out on that corduroy road if they come out that way. There's a chunk of land, I believe, between Rona and the hospital property that backs onto the portion of the road that they want to build. So that would allow the owner of that property access out right away. And is there not a couple pieces of crown land that's in the triangle part where they bend to come out? I understand that there was a couple pieces of crown land in there that may be accessible to get in to make that a little more viable if that was available, sort of thing. So anyway, I personally would like to kind of see it proceed if all the concerns that you brought up are
I think everybody's got some concerns that
Thank you.
need to be addressed. So, and staff may have some other concerns that we don't even see, you know, as well. So anyway, I think we've rattled this around pretty good. All in favor of the direction? And that's carried. Hmm. Now, moved by Counselor, well, I'm gonna get a drink of water before this one. Moved by Counselor Borneman, seconded by Counselor McCann. Whereas the town of Parry Sound has an economic development officer, EDO, and administrative assistant responsible for leading, coordinating, and developing activities and initiatives that will attract investment, business opportunities, and tourism development to the town of Parry Sound, including the Parry Sound Area Industrial Park and the Parry Sound Area Municipal Airport, and to develop and lead a business retention and expansion program that will increase employment and business growth. And whereas the other 6 municipalities within West Parry Sound do not individually employ an EDO, but rather joined in 2017 with the town of Parry Sound in establishing the West Parry Sound Economic Development Collaborative to drive collaborative economic development in the area. And whereas since its inception, the collaborative has been fortunate to have been predominantly funded through FedNor's Community Investment Initiative for Northern Ontario, which was called CINO. And whereas the funding extended to the collaborative came to an end in November of 2023. And whereas the 7 West Parry Sound municipalities must now look at ways to grow and become sustainable using a self-funded model. And whereas it understood that having all 7 municipalities working together is best for the entire area, and whereas it would be detrimental to the area if this collaborative approach ceased to exist. And whereas there is a strong need for this type of area collaborative to assist with business attraction and retention, sustainable employment, with the attraction of high-skilled labor and environmentally friendly business development. And whereas the collaborative has indicated there are sufficient funds in an amount of approximately $19,000 available to undertake a strategic plan process to determine a long-term vision. Now therefore be it resolved, the Council for the Town of Parry Sound hereby supports the continuation of a collaborative approach to economic development in the West Parry Sound area and the implementation of a strategic planning process to establish a long-term vision for the provision of efficient and effective economic development services, recognizing the town has an economic development office. Discussion. All in favor then? That's carried. And that's everything right now. Okay. Yes. Moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Boleski, that bylaw number 2023-7380 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be considered as read a first time. All in favor? And it's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Boleski, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? That's carried. Now, as a reminder, we'll remind everybody again, Santa Claus Parade, November the 25th. And the CP Holiday Train is November the 29th, on November the 25th, November the 29th. And it's supposed to be, the train's supposed to be here at 4:15 at the CP station, 4:30 for the show. We hope that's right. And definitely bring food donations to Harvest Share, because that will be part of the drive for that particular event. Also, nominations are now open for the 2023 Order of Parry Sound. The order celebrates an individual annually who aspires to the motto, "They desire a better community." Check the town website for nomination forms and eligibility criteria. Deadline for nominations is December 15th, 2023. And the 2023 order will be awarded in January at the mayor's annual levy first Sunday after New Year's Day. So prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, December 5th at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the town of Parry Sound Council Chambers at 52 Seguin Street, entrance via Gibson Street. Be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. The council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca and use the search bar. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. And for Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.